Your brain is not failing you when it replays that humiliating thing you said 5 years ago. It is actually performing a highly calibrated, evolutionary survival protocol designed to keep you from being exiled by your tribe. That sudden, cold shiver of cringe that hits you in the middle of the night is not a malfunction of your memory. It is an ancient biological warning system running a critical software update on your social survival code. You are biologically hardwired to remember your mistakes with painful, high-definition clarity. Have you ever wondered why you can remember the exact layout of a room where you made a fool of yourself, but you cannot remember what you had for breakfast 3 days ago? Today, we are cracking open the neural circuitry of the human brain to understand the amygdala-hippocampus loop, a mechanism that treats social awkwardness with the exact same biological urgency as a physical attack. You are about to discover how your brain writes these cringe-worthy moments in permanent ink and how you can finally rewrite those neural tracks. Let us begin by stepping into a moment we all know too well. Picture yourself at a semi-formal social gathering. You are engaged in polite conversation when you suddenly make a joke that falls completely flat. The room goes quiet. A few people clear their throats, and the silence stretches out for what feels like an eternity. In that exact fraction of a second, your physical body reacts before your conscious mind even has time to process the event. Your cheeks burn, your heart rate spikes, and your chest feels incredibly tight. This is not just a psychological reaction, it is a full-scale neurological event. Your brain's threat detection network has just perceived a catastrophic risk. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the brain as an ancient biological machine running ancestral programs. For 99% of human history, living in a tight-knit community was the only thing standing between you and certain death. If the group decided you were a liability, you were cast out into the wilderness, where you would quickly perish from hunger, cold, or predators. Consequently, your nervous system evolved to treat social rejection as a threat of the absolute highest order. To your brain, a slip of the tongue in a social setting is not just a minor embarrassment, it is the equivalent of a rustle in the bushes that might indicate a hidden predator. This brings us to a seminal study conducted in the year 2007 by a brilliant neuroscientist named Dr. Elizabeth Kensinger at Boston College. Dr. Kensinger investigated how emotional experiences affect the vividness and accuracy of our memories. What she discovered was remarkable. When an event carries a negative emotional charge, the amygdala, the brain's emotional fire alarm, activates intensely. This activation does not just create a feeling of fear or embarrassment, it acts as a powerful neural amplifier. The amygdala sends direct, high-priority signals to the hippocampus, which is the organ responsible for encoding our daily memories. It is as if the amygdala is slamming its fist on the desk of the hippocampus, demanding that every single detail of this specific event be carved deep into the neural tissue. Under normal circumstances, your brain acts like a selective filter, discarding 90% of the mundane sensory information you encounter every day. You do not remember the color of the car that drove past you this morning, nor do you remember the exact words your coworker used to greet you. But when the amygdala is activated by a cringe-worthy event, the floodgates open. The stress hormones cortisol and adrenaline flood your prefrontal cortex, locking down the precise layout of the room, the facial expressions of the people around you, and even the temperature of the air. This emotional glue ensures that the memory is preserved not as a vague concept, but as a rich, sensory-heavy file that remains incredibly easy to retrieve. Stop. Take a moment to let that sink in. Your brain did not record that memory to torture you. It recorded it because it genuinely believes that remembering that specific mistake is the only way to keep you alive. It is trying to build a barrier around that behavior, warning you never ever to repeat it. But while this survival system worked beautifully when we were foraging on the savannah, it poses a massive problem in our modern, hyper-connected world, where we face social interactions every single hour of the day. This brings us to the most startling and counterintuitive revelation of modern neuroscience, a discovery that completely changes how we must view our own inner monologue. Every single time you lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling and letting that awkward moment play out on the big screen of your mind, you are not simply remembering the past. You are actively making the memory worse. For decades, psychologists believed that memories were like physical books stored in a vast library. You could pull a book off the shelf, read it, and put it back exactly as it was. But in the year 2000, a neuroscientist named Dr. Karim Nader shook the scientific community to its core by proving that this model is entirely wrong. Dr. Nader demonstrated that memories are subject to a biological process called reconsolidation. When you recall a memory, it does not remain a solid, unchangeable file. Instead, the physical neural pathways that hold that memory become temporarily unstable, pliable, and incredibly vulnerable to change. Think of it like opening a document on a computer screen. The moment you open that file, you have the ability to edit it, add new text, or change the formatting. When you close the file and hit save, the original version is gone, replaced entirely by the newly edited version. When you recall that cringe-worthy moment from 5 years ago, you do not actually retrieve the original event. You retrieve the last time you thought about it. And if you are thinking about it while feeling a wave of fresh panic, shame, and self-judgment, your brain takes those current feelings, glues them onto the old memory, and saves the updated, even more painful version back into your long-term storage. Do you see the vicious loop you have been trapped in? You're using your own imagination to upgrade the emotional damage of your past. The before and after of this neural loop is incredibly profound. Before you began obsessing over it, the memory was just a tiny, isolated node in your brain. But after years of constantly pulling that file out, drenching it in cortisol, and saving it again, you have transformed a minor social error into a massive emotional monument. This constant reconsolidation wears a deep, jagged groove into your neural landscape. It makes the pathway so smooth and heavily traveled that your mind slips into it effortlessly, turning a simple distraction into a cascade of social anxiety that influences how you behave in meetings, at parties, and even in your closest relationships. It is a loop of your own making. But because this is a biological machine, understanding the mechanics of the machine gives you the power to override its programming. If recalling a memory makes it unstable and editable, then you possess the biological ability to change how that memory feels. You do not have to be a passive victim of your brain's evolutionary software. You can become the programmer. So how do we actually do this? How do we step into the control room of our own minds and rewrite the files that have been causing us pain for years? There are 3 highly specific, scientifically validated protocols you can begin using today to permanently disarm your cringiest memories. First, you must master the art of deliberate memory disruption. Since we know from Dr. Nader's work that a retrieved memory remains highly unstable for a window of roughly 4 to 6 hours, this is your prime opportunity to rewrite the file. The next time a cringy memory pops into your head, do not try to run away from it, and do not let it drag you down into a spiral of shame. Instead, welcome the memory in, but immediately disrupt its emotional tone with deliberate absurdity. Force yourself to imagine the entire scene as if it were an old silent film. Picture everyone in the room wearing ridiculous clown hats, speaking in chipmunk voices, or moving in fast forward. You can even imagine an energetic sports commentator describing your embarrassing moment with over-the-top excitement. By intentionally flooding your brain with feelings of amusement, humor, or lightheartedness, while the memory pathway is open and malleable, you force your hippocampus to save the file with these new, non-threatening emotional tags. When you recall the event a week from now, you will find that the sharp, painful edge has completely vanished. What you are doing here is called cognitive hacking. Your brain cannot distinguish between a real emotion triggered by a current event and an emotion you deliberately generate while thinking about that event. By forcing the neural pathway to fire alongside a completely different emotional frequency, you scramble the original signal. It is like pouring bright paint into a jar of muddy water. The original composition is permanently altered. Second, you must dismantle the cognitive illusion known as the spotlight effect. Our brains are deeply egocentric, meaning they view the entire world through the lens of our own personal experience. Because of this, we suffer from a persistent bias where we assume other people are paying far more attention to us than they actually are. We walk through life believing that everyone around us is keeping a detailed log of our stumbles, our awkward pauses, and our fashion choices. But here is the shocking scientific reframe. Every single person you meet is too busy worrying about their own spotlight to care about yours. They are not thinking about that clumsy comment you made, because they are drowning in their own sea of cringy memories. To break free from this illusion, practice a technique called external attention training. The moment you feel the heat of a cringe memory rising, physically shift your attention outward. Look around you and name 5 red things in your immediate environment. Listen closely for 3 distinct sounds. Feel the physical contact of your feet pressing against the floor. By anchoring your sensory attention in the present moment, you deprive the internal worry network of the metabolic energy it needs to sustain itself. This simple shift acts like a circuit breaker in your nervous system. Your prefrontal cortex has a limited bandwidth for conscious processing. If you fill that bandwidth with concrete sensory data from the room around you, there is literally no computational space left for your brain to run the cringe program. You are starving the anxiety loop of the mental oxygen it requires to burn. Third, you need to use the cognitive distancing timeline tool to retrain your prefrontal cortex. When a memory arises and triggers a wave of embarrassment, your amygdala is operating under the assumption that this event is a current, active crisis. You must manually intervene and show your brain the bigger picture. Ask yourself, will this memory matter to anyone on Earth in 5 years? To make this truth even more real, try to recall an embarrassing mistake made by one of your close friends or colleagues 5 years ago. Can you remember even a single one? Almost certainly you cannot. And if you cannot remember their mistakes, what makes you think they are spending a single second remembering yours? Realizing that the world has moved on helps quiet the amygdala, allowing your nervous system to drop back down into a state of safety and calm. This technique relies on the temporal lobe's ability to contextualize events. When you force your brain to look across a wide time horizon, you strip the emotional charge away from the memory. It is the neurological equivalent of zooming out on a map. The obstacle that seemed like a mountain suddenly shrinks to the size of a tiny grain of sand. When you begin to apply these tools, a profound shift starts to occur in how you view your own mind. You begin to realize that the cringe you feel is not a symptom of low self-esteem or a proof of social incompetence. In fact, that cringe is the ultimate evidence of your own personal evolution. Think about it. If you look back at the person you were 3, 5, or 10 years ago and you feel embarrassed by how you acted, it means you have grown. It means your standards of maturity, your social intelligence, and your empathy have reached a much higher level. The only way to never feel cringe is to never grow at all. If you were the exact same person today as you were back then, you would look at your past self and feel perfectly fine. Cringe is not a design flaw of the human mind. It is the tax you pay for human growth. Let that truth settle deep into your mind. The next time that cold wave of embarrassment hits you, you do not need to fight it. You do not need to feel angry at your brain for bringing it up. You can simply pause, take a deep breath, and smile at the beauty of this biological machine. Your brain is just trying to protect you, using an ancient survival program that kept your ancestors safe on the plains of Africa. But you are no longer in survival mode. You are safe, you are growing, and you have the power to rewrite your own code. You can look back at that younger, awkward version of yourself, not with horror, but with a deep, quiet sense of warmth and gratitude for the long, winding road that brought you to where you stand today. Now that you understand the neural machinery of memory, you hold the power to shape your own personal narrative. Do not let your survival systems run on autopilot. Reframe the files, turn the spotlight outward, and wear your growth like a badge of honor. If you are ready to continue decoding the hidden biological forces that govern your daily decisions, your habits, and your thoughts, step inside our next journey, where we will uncover why your brain makes you crave the very things that destroy your focus. The door is open.